Hey there, friend. Before we dive into this incredible journey together, if you enjoy what you hear today, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you great content like this. So, let me tell you a story. It's about a young man who got hit in the face with a baseball bat when he was just 15 years old. The accident was so severe that he was airlifted to a hospital, put into a medically induced coma, and wasn't expected to make much of a recovery. His dreams of becoming a professional baseball player seemed shattered, along with his skull. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 years later, that same young man was named the top male athlete at his university and selected for the ESPN Academic All-America team. His name is James Clear, and he's the author of the book we're exploring today, Atomic Habits. Now, James would be the first to tell you there was nothing magical about his recovery. He didn't have some superhuman willpower or secret technique. What he had was something far more powerful, an understanding of how tiny changes repeated consistently over time can create remarkable results. And that, my friend, is exactly what we're going to explore together over the next hour. We're going to dive deep into the science of habits, discover why small changes matter so much, and learn practical strategies you can use starting today to transform your life. So, get comfortable because we've got quite a journey ahead of us. The surprising power of tiny changes. Let's start with a question that might surprise you. Can getting just 1% better each day actually transform your life? Now, I know what you might be thinking. 1%? That's nothing. That's barely noticeable. And you're right, it is barely noticeable. That's exactly the point, and it's also exactly the problem. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're standing at the beginning of a year and you make a decision to get just 1% better every single day. Not 10%, not 50%, just one tiny percent. By the end of that year, you won't be just 365% better. No, you'll be 37 times better. That's right, 37 times better than when you started. On the flip side, if you get 1% worse each day for a year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. It's mathematics, but it's also magic. James Clear discovered this principle firsthand. After his devastating injury, he started making tiny improvements. He didn't try to transform his entire life overnight. He simply focused on getting a little bit better each day. Better sleep habits, a cleaner room, more consistent studying. Nothing dramatic, just small, manageable changes. But here's the beautiful truth. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Just like money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. They might seem to make little difference on any given day, but the impact they deliver over months and years can be enormous. Think about it like this. If you save a little money today, you're still not rich. If you go to the gym 3 days in a row, you're still out of shape. If you study a new language for an hour tonight, you haven't learned it yet. We make these small changes, but the results never seem to come quickly, so we slide back into our old routines. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Your work isn't wasted. It's just being stored. All the action happens when you cross a critical threshold. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. The temperature is 25 degrees. Slowly, the room heats up. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube just sits there. 29 degrees, 30, 31. Still nothing. Then 32 degrees, and suddenly the ice begins to melt. A 1-degree shift has unlocked a huge change. This is how habits work. You keep putting in the work day after day, seemingly without results. Your friends might question what you're doing. You might question yourself. But you're not failing. You're just on the other side of that breakthrough. You're storing up potential energy that will eventually be released in a dramatic fashion. Let me tell you another story that illustrates this beautifully. In 2003, British Cycling hired a new performance director named Dave Brailsford. At the time, British cyclists had endured nearly 100 years of mediocrity. They'd won just a single gold medal at the Olympics since 1908, and no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France.
Brailsford came in with a simple philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. His idea was to find a tiny margin of improvement in everything the team did. He said, if you break down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. So what did they do? They redesigned the bike seats to make them more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for a better grip. They tested different fabrics in wind tunnels to find which were most aerodynamic. They even painted the inside of the team truck white to spot tiny bits of dust that could degrade performance. The results? Just 5 years later, British cycling dominated at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, winning 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years after that, they set 9 Olympic records, and Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist ever to win the Tour de France. Over the next few years, British cyclists would go on to win 178 world championships and 66 Olympic medals, all from 1% improvements. But here's what I want you to understand. This works both ways. Just as small improvements compound into remarkable results, small mistakes can compound into toxic results. If you eat an unhealthy meal today, the scale doesn't move much. If you procrastinate on a project, there's usually time to finish it later. A single decision is easy to dismiss, but when you repeat these small errors day after day, they compound into serious problems. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your bank account is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. You get what you repeat. So here's the big insight I want you to walk away with. Success is not about any single accomplishment. It's not about one big transformation. It's about the daily habits you perform, the tiny battles you fight and win each day. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy. Forget goals, focus on systems. Now, let me ask you something. When you think about changing your life, what comes to mind? Maybe you think, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to write a book, or I want to run a marathon. These are goals, and for years, everyone, including James Clear, thought goals were the key to success. But here's the problem. Goals are actually holding you back. I know, that sounds crazy, but stick with me for a minute. Think about it this way. What's the difference between you and an Olympic athlete? You both want to win gold medals. What's the difference between you and a successful entrepreneur? You both want to build profitable businesses. Winners and losers have the same goals. So if everyone has the same goals, then goals can't be what differentiates winners from losers. James Clear learned to think differently about this. Instead of focusing on goals, he started focusing on systems. And what's a system? It's the process that leads to results. Let me give you some examples. If you're a coach, your goal might be to win a championship. But your system is how you recruit players, manage your team, and run practices. If you're a writer, your goal might be to write a best-selling book. But your system is the writing schedule you follow every day, the research process you use, and how you handle feedback. Here's the interesting question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? James Clear believes you would, and I think he's onto something. Think about it. The goal in any sport is to have the best score, but it would be ridiculous to spend the whole game staring at the scoreboard. The only way to actually win is to get better each day. As legendary football coach Bill Walsh said, the score takes care of itself. Now, you might be wondering, are goals completely useless? Not at all. Goals are good for setting direction, but systems are best for making progress. And when you spend too much time thinking about goals and not enough time designing systems, you run into problems. Problem number 1. Goals create an either-or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and are successful, or you fail and are a disappointment. You've boxed yourself into a narrow version of happiness. But life rarely follows the exact path you planned. There are many routes to success, so why restrict yourself to one scenario? Problem number 2, achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Imagine you have a messy room and set a goal to clean it. If you summon the energy to tidy up, you'll have a clean room, for now. But if you maintain the same messy habits, soon you'll be looking at a new pile of clutter. You've treated the symptom without addressing the cause. Problem number 3. Goals can restrict your happiness. The assumption behind any goal is, once I reach my goal, then I'll be happy. But this means you're continually putting happiness off until the next milestone. James Clear fell into this trap many times. For years, happiness was always something for his future self to enjoy. When you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime your system is running. And here's problem number 4. Goals are at odds with long-term progress. Many runners work hard for months to complete a race, but as soon as they cross the finish line, they stop training. The race is no longer there to motivate them. When all your hard work is focused on a particular goal, what's left to push you forward after you achieve it? The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goalless thinking. So here's the key principle. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. If you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change.
All right, now we're getting to the really powerful stuff. Because here's something most people don't understand about habits. It's not really about what you do, it's about who you are. Let me explain what I mean with a simple example. Imagine 2 people at a party, and someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Notice the difference? The first person still believes they're a smoker. They're just trying to be something else. They're hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. The second person has shifted their identity. Smoking was part of their former life, not their current one. This is huge. Behind every system of actions is a system of beliefs. Most people don't consider identity change when they set out to improve. They think, I want to be skinny, and if I stick to this diet, I'll be skinny. They set goals and determine actions without considering the beliefs that drive those actions. They never shift the way they look at themselves. Here's the truth. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. You may want more money, but if your identity is someone who consumes rather than creates, you'll be pulled towards spending rather than earning. You may want better health, but if you prioritize comfort over accomplishment, you'll be drawn to relaxing rather than training. Let me share a great story that illustrates this. There was a man named Brian Clark who had chewed his fingernails for as long as he could remember. It started as a nervous habit and became an automatic behavior. One day, he resolved to stop and through sheer willpower managed to let his nails grow out. Then, he did something interesting. He scheduled his first ever manicure. His thought was that if he started paying to maintain his nails, he wouldn't chew them. But that's not what actually worked. What happened was the manicure made his fingers look really nice for the first time. The manicurist even commented that he had really healthy, attractive nails. Suddenly, Brian was proud of his fingernails. And here's the key. He never chewed his nails again. Not even once. Why? Because his identity changed. He went from being someone who chews their nails to being someone who takes pride in properly caring for their nails.
The ultimate form of motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. It's one thing to say, "I'm the type of person who wants this." It's something completely different to say, "I'm the type of person who is this." True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is that it becomes part of your identity.
Think about it this way. The goal is not to read a book, the goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon, the goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument, the goal is to become a musician. Your identity emerges out of your habits. You're not born with preset beliefs. Every belief is learned and conditioned through experience. When you make your bed each day, you embody the identity of an organized person. When you write each day, you embody the identity of a creative person. When you train each day, you embody the identity of an athletic person. The more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with that behavior. In fact, the word identity originally comes from Latin words meaning repeated beingness. Your identity is literally your repeated being. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Now, this is where it gets really practical. How do you actually change your identity? It's a simple two-step process. First, decide the type of person you want to be. What do you want to stand for? What are your principles and values? Who do you wish to become? If you're not sure, start with the results you want and work backward. Ask yourself, who is the type of person that could get the outcome I want? Who is the type of person that could lose 40 pounds? Who is the type of person that could learn a new language? Who is the type of person that could run a successful business? Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. If you want to be a writer, prove it by writing every day, even if it's just one sentence. If you want to be an athlete, prove it by showing up to the gym, even if you only stay for 5 minutes. Each habit not only gets results, but also teaches you to trust yourself. James Clear has a friend who lost over 100 pounds by asking herself one simple question all day long. What would a healthy person do? Would a healthy person take a cab or walk? Would a healthy person order a burrito or a salad? She figured if she acted like a healthy person long enough, she would become that person. And she was right. The key is this. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. It's a two-way street. The more you perform a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with it. And the more you believe in that identity, the more motivated you are to maintain the habits. The 4 laws of behavior change. Now that we understand the power of identity, let's talk about how habits actually work. Because once you understand the structure of habits, you can rebuild them to your liking. It all starts with a simple question. Why does your brain bother building habits at all? Well, imagine you're a cat trapped in a box. This actually happened in a famous experiment back in 1898. A psychologist named Edward Thorndike would place cats in a puzzle box. The box was designed so the cat could escape by pulling a lever. At first, the cat would move around randomly, trying different things. Eventually, by accident, the cat would press the lever. The door would open, and it would escape to get food. After many trials, something amazing happened. The cat learned. Instead of wandering around randomly, it would go straight to the lever. What took 160 seconds the first time took just 5 seconds after practice. The behavior became automatic. It became a habit. This is exactly what your brain does. Whenever you face a problem repeatedly, your brain begins to automate the process of solving it. Your habits are simply reliable solutions to recurring problems in your environment. And here's why this matters. Habit formation is incredibly useful because your conscious mind is the bottleneck of your brain. It can only pay attention to one problem at a time. So whenever possible, your brain likes to delegate tasks to your non-conscious mind to do automatically. This frees up your attention for other things.
So, how exactly does a habit form? It happens in 4 steps, and James Clear calls this the habit loop. Step 1 is the cue. This is a bit of information that predicts a reward. It triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. Maybe you smell cookies baking, or you see your phone light up with a notification, or you walk past a gym. These are cues. Step 2 is the craving. This is the motivational force behind every habit. You don't crave the habit itself, you crave the change in state it delivers. You don't crave smoking a cigarette, you crave the feeling of relief. You don't crave brushing your teeth, you crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave turning on the TV, you crave being entertained. Step 3 is the response. This is the actual habit you perform, whether it's a thought or an action. Whether a response occurs depends on how motivated you are and how much effort is required. If an action requires more effort than you're willing to expend, you won't do it. Step 4 is the reward. This is the end goal of every habit. Rewards serve 2 purposes. They satisfy your craving and they teach you which actions are worth remembering in the future. Your brain is constantly monitoring which actions satisfy your desires and deliver pleasure. Here's how it all works together. The cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving and becomes associated with the cue. Together, these 4 steps form a loop, and this cycle is running constantly every moment you're alive. Now here's where it gets really powerful. Once James Clear understood this 4-step loop, he realized you could use it to build better habits. He developed what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. To build a good habit, make it obvious, cue, make it attractive, craving, make it easy, response, make it satisfying, reward. And to break a bad habit, you simply invert these laws. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. These 4 laws are the backbone of everything we're going to discuss for the rest of our time together. They're simple, but they're incredibly powerful. Let me show you how they work in practice.
Let's start with the first law. Make it obvious. Here's a strange but true story. In the 1970s, some Dutch researchers were studying energy consumption, and they noticed something odd. In one suburb near Amsterdam, some homeowners used 30% less energy than their neighbors, even though their homes were almost identical in size and got electricity for the same price. What was the difference? The location of the electrical meter. Some homes had meters in the basement. Others had them in the main hallway where people could easily see them. When energy use was obvious and easy to track, people changed their behavior. This is the power of making things obvious. The problem is, many of our habits are invisible to us. After decades of mental programming, we automatically slip into patterns of thinking and acting without realizing it. Over time, the cues that spark our habits become so common that they're essentially invisible. Let me give you an example. There was a retail clerk who was instructed to cut up empty gift cards after customers used them. One day, she cashed out several customers in a row who paid with gift cards. When the next person walked up, she swiped their actual credit card, picked up the scissors, and then cut it in half, completely on autopilot, before looking up at the stunned customer. We've all done things like this. Unless someone points it out, you might not notice that you cover your mouth when you laugh, or that you apologize before asking a question, or that you check your phone every time you feel bored. So the first step in changing any habit is becoming aware of it. James Clear created a simple exercise called the Habit Scorecard to help with this. Here's how it works. Make a list of your daily habits. Everything. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, go to the bathroom, weigh yourself, take a shower, brush teeth, everything you do. Then look at each behavior and ask yourself, is this a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? Mark good habits with a plus sign, bad habits with a minus sign, and neutral habits with an equal sign. The key here is to think about the long-term consequences. Does this behavior help you become the type of person you wish to be? But awareness is just the first step. Once you're aware of your habits, you need to make the cues for good habits obvious.
One powerful strategy is called implementation intention. Instead of saying, "I'm going to exercise more," you say, "I will exercise for 1 hour at 5 p.m. at my local gym." Instead of "I'm going to eat healthier," you say, "I will eat a salad for lunch at noon in my kitchen." Research shows that people who make a specific plan for when and where they will perform a habit are much more likely to follow through. Why? Because it eliminates ambiguity. When the moment arrives, you don't have to make a decision, you simply follow your predetermined plan. But James Clear takes this even further with a strategy he calls habit stacking. Instead of pairing a new habit with a time and location, you pair it with a current habit you already do every day. The formula is simple. After I current habit, I will new habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I sit down for dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. After I put my head on the pillow, I will give my partner a kiss. This works because your current habits are already built into your brain. You don't have to remember to do them, they happen automatically. By stacking a new habit on top of an old one, you're using the natural momentum of one behavior to lead into the next. The other way to make habits obvious is through environment design. Your environment is the invisible hand that shapes your behavior. Every habit is context dependent. In church, people whisper. On a dark street, people are guarded. Here's a simple example. James Clear used to buy apples and put them in the crisper drawer at the bottom of his refrigerator where he'd forget about them until they went bad. Then he bought a large bowl and placed it in the middle of his kitchen counter. The next time he bought apples, that's where they went. Out in the open where he could see them. Almost like magic, he started eating apples every day simply because they were visible. If you want to remember to take your medication, put your pill bottle next to the faucet. If you want to practice guitar more, place your guitar stand in the middle of the living room. If you want to drink more water, fill up bottles in the morning and place them around your house. The most persistent behaviors have multiple cues. Make sure the best choice is the most obvious one. Now let's talk about the second law. Make it attractive. Here's a fascinating story. In the 1940s, a Dutch scientist named Nico Tinbergen was studying herring gulls. He noticed that baby gulls would peck at a small red dot on their parents' beak when they wanted food. So he created fake cardboard beaks, just the head without the body, and showed them to baby gulls. The babies pecked at the fake beaks just as if they were real. But here's where it gets interesting. Tinbergen discovered that the bigger the red dot, the faster the babies pecked. Eventually, he created a beak with 3 large red dots. When he showed it to the baby gulls, they went crazy with delight, pecking faster than they ever had at their real mother's beak. Scientists call these exaggerated cues supernormal stimuli, and humans are just as susceptible to them as baby birds. Think about junk food. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors had to hunt and forage for food. Calories were scarce, especially salt, sugar, and fat. Our brains evolved to place a high value on these nutrients because when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, eating as much as possible is a great survival strategy. But now, we live in a calorie-rich environment. Food is everywhere. Yet your brain still craves salt, sugar, and fat like they're scarce. The modern food industry has created supernormal stimuli, foods that are more attractive than anything found in nature. Processed foods are designed to hit your bliss point, the perfect combination of salt, sugar, and fat that excites your brain and keeps you coming back for more. And it's not just food. Social media gives you more likes and praise in minutes than you could get in days in real life. Online entertainment is more concentrated and stimulating than anything our ancestors experienced. We're surrounded by exaggerated versions of reality, and our instincts go wild. But here's the good news. You can use this principle to make your habits more attractive. The key is understanding dopamine. For years, scientists thought dopamine was all about pleasure, but newer research shows it's actually about anticipation. Gambling addicts get a dopamine spike right before they place a bet, not after they win. Cocaine addicts get a surge when they see the powder, not after they take it. It's the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. This is why daydreaming about an upcoming vacation can be more enjoyable than actually being on vacation. It's why kids get more excited thinking about Christmas morning than opening the gifts. So, how do you use it? One strategy James Clear calls temptation bundling. You link an action you want to do with an action you need to do. There's a great example of this. An engineering student in Ireland named Ronan Byrne loved watching Netflix but knew he should exercise more. So he hacked his stationary bike and connected it to his laptop. He wrote a program that would only allow Netflix to play if he was cycling at a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show would pause. He was bundling watching Netflix, what he wanted, with riding his bike, what he needed.
The formula is simple. After habit I need, I will habit I want. For example, after I call 3 potential clients, I will check ESPN. After I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook. After I work for 25 minutes, I will watch 1 YouTube video. Another powerful way to make habits attractive is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. We imitate the habits of 3 groups: the close, family and friends; the many, the tribe; and the powerful, those with status. There's a company called Nerd Fitness that helps nerds, misfits, and mutants get in shape. Many people feel out of place when they first try to get healthy, but if you join a community where you already have something in common, like a mutual love of Star Wars, change becomes much more appealing. Nothing sustains motivation better than belonging to a tribe. When you join a group, your identity becomes linked to those around you. You're no longer on your own. The shared identity reinforces your personal identity. The lesson? Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have. You'll rise together. Let's move on to the third law. Make it easy. Here's a story that might surprise you. In the 1970s, there was a photography professor who divided his class into 2 groups. He told the first group they'd be graded on the quantity of work they produced. 100 photos would be an A, 90 photos a B, and so on. The second group would be graded only on quality. They only needed to produce 1 photo, but it had to be nearly perfect to get an A. At the end of the term, guess which group produced the best photos? The quantity group. While the quality group sat around theorizing about perfection, the quantity group was busy taking photos, experimenting with lighting and composition, learning from mistakes. They were practicing, and through practice, they got better. This illustrates a crucial insight. We often get so focused on figuring out the best approach that we never get around to taking action. As Voltaire once wrote, "The best is the enemy of the good." James Clear calls this the difference between being in motion and taking action. When you're in motion, you're planning, strategizing, learning. Those are good things, but they don't produce results. Action is what delivers outcomes. Sometimes we stay in motion because it allows us to feel like we're making progress without running the risk of failure. It's easy to be in motion and convince yourself you're still moving forward, but really, you're just preparing to get something done. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. Here's why. Every time you repeat a habit, you're activating a particular neural circuit in your brain. This strengthens the connection between neurons. Neuroscientists discovered this back in 1949 and summarized it beautifully. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repeating a habit leads to physical changes in your brain. Musicians have a larger cerebellum than non-musicians. Mathematicians have more gray matter in certain areas. London taxi drivers, who have to memorize the entire city's layout, have significantly larger hippocampi, the region responsible for spatial memory.
The point is, habits form based on frequency, not time. People often ask, how long does it take to build a habit? But the better question is, how many repetitions does it take? You could do something twice in 30 days or 200 times. It's the frequency that matters. So how do you make it easy to repeat a habit? By following the law of least effort. Here's a fascinating example. Jared Diamond, the author of Guns, Germs, and Steel, noticed something interesting about how agriculture spread around the world. Farming spread much faster east to west across Europe and Asia than it did north to south in the Americas and Africa. Why? Because locations along the same latitude share similar climates, amounts of sunlight, and seasons. Farmers could grow the same crops across the entire stretch from France to China. But when traveling north to south, the climate changes dramatically. You can't grow Florida oranges in Canadian winter. As a result, agriculture spread 2 to 3 times faster across Europe and Asia, and over centuries, this small advantage compounded into substantial differences in development. The lesson? Human behavior follows the law of least effort. When deciding between two similar options, people naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. This is why habits like scrolling on your phone, checking email, and watching TV steal so much time. They can be performed with very low levels of motivation. They're remarkably convenient. So here's the key. Reduce the friction associated with good behaviors and increase the friction associated with bad behaviors. Want to exercise more? Sleep in your workout clothes so you can roll out of bed and go. Want to eat healthier? Prep your meals on Sunday so healthy food is ready to grab during the week. Want to practice guitar? Leave it out on a stand in your living room instead of in a case in the closet. On the flip side, want to watch less TV? Unplug it and take the batteries out of the remote after each use. Want to spend less time on social media? Log out after each session. Delete the apps from your phone or use a website blocker. James Clear calls this priming your environment. One of his readers, Oswald Knuckles, uses a strategy he calls resetting the room. When he finishes watching TV, he places the remote back on the stand, arranges the pillows, and folds the blanket. When he leaves his car, he throws away any trash. The purpose isn't just to clean up after the last action, but to prepare for the next one. The idea is to create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. Much of the battle of building better habits comes down to finding ways to reduce the friction for good habits and increase the friction for bad ones.
Now, within this third law of making it easy, there's a powerful strategy I want to share with you. It's called the 2-minute rule, and it's deceptively simple. Let me tell you about Twyla Tharp. She's widely regarded as one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of modern times. In 1992, she won a MacArthur Genius Grant, and she credits much of her success to a simple daily habit. "I begin each day with a ritual," she writes. "I wake up at 5:30 a.m., put on my workout clothes, and walk outside my home to hail a taxi. I tell the driver to take me to the gym where I work out for 2 hours." Now, here's what's interesting. Twyla says the ritual isn't the workout itself. The ritual is hailing the cab. The moment she tells the driver where to go, she's completed the ritual. Everything else flows from that simple act. This is brilliant because it recognizes a fundamental truth. Habits are the entry point, not the end point. They're like an entrance ramp to a highway. Each evening, James Clear has a tiny moment around 5:15 p.m. that shapes his entire night. When his wife walks in from work, either they change into workout clothes and head to the gym, or they crash on the couch and order takeout. The decisive moment is changing into workout clothes. If he does that, the workout happens. If he doesn't, it won't. These little choices are like forks in the road, and they determine the path you take for the next chunk of time. This is why mastering decisive moments is so important. But here's the problem. When you dream about making a change, excitement takes over and you end up trying to do too much too soon. You want to transform your life overnight. And that's where the 2-minute rule comes in. The rule states, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. So you scale down your habits. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can read 1 page, anyone can tie their shoes. And here's what happens. Once you've started doing the right thing, it's much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. This is your gateway habit, the habit that naturally leads you down a more productive path. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This feels like a trick.
I know I want to do more than 2 minutes. And you're right, you do want to do more. But here's the thing. You're not trying to make 2 minutes the goal. You're trying to master the habit of showing up. The truth is, a habit must be established before it can be improved. If you can't learn the basic skill of showing up, you have little hope of mastering the finer details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, do the easy thing on a more consistent basis. You have to standardize before you can optimize. James Clear knows a reader who lost over 100 pounds using this strategy. In the beginning, he went to the gym each day but told himself he wasn't allowed to stay for more than 5 minutes. He'd exercise for 5 minutes and leave. After a few weeks, he thought, well, I'm always here anyway, I might as well stay a little longer. A few years later, the weight was gone. The 2-minute rule works because it reinforces the identity you want to build. If you show up at the gym 5 days in a row, even if it's just for 2 minutes, you're casting votes for your new identity. You're becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. And here's something important to remember. Doing less than you hoped is better than doing nothing at all. 1 push-up is better than not exercising. 1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. Even when you can't do much, showing up reinforces your identity. Now we come to the 4th and final law. Make it satisfying. Let me tell you a remarkable story. In the late 1990s, a public health worker named Stephen Luby traveled to Karachi, Pakistan. The city was home to over 9 million people, but more than 60% lived in slums and squatter settlements with no waste removal, no electricity, no clean water. The unsanitary conditions led to widespread disease. Nearly 1/3 of children were malnourished. Luby and his team realized that the simple habit of hand washing could make a real difference. But here's the thing, many people already knew that hand washing was important. They just weren't doing it consistently. Some would run their hands under water quickly, others would only wash one hand, many would forget entirely. The problem wasn't knowledge, the problem was consistency. So Luby partnered with Procter & Gamble to supply the neighborhood with Safeguard soap. Now, compared to regular soap, Safeguard was a more enjoyable experience. It foamed easily, it smelled great, it felt good to use. Hand washing became slightly more pleasurable. Within months, the health of children in the neighborhood improved dramatically. Diarrhea fell by 52%, pneumonia fell by 48%, skin infections fell by 35%. But here's what's even more remarkable. 6 years later, researchers went back to check on these households. Over 95% still had soap and water available for hand washing. They had maintained the habit for over 5 years without any reminders or additional supplies. The habit had stuck because it was satisfying. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. We're more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. This is entirely logical. Feelings of pleasure, even minor ones, are signals that tell the brain, this feels good, do this again. Pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. Think about chewing gum. It had been sold commercially throughout the 1800s, but it didn't become a worldwide habit until Wrigley revolutionized it by adding flavors like spearmint and juicy fruit. Tasty flavors made the product fun to use, and consumption skyrocketed. The same thing happened with toothpaste. Manufacturers achieved great success when they added flavors like spearmint and peppermint. These flavors don't improve the effectiveness of toothpaste, they just create a clean mouthfeel that makes brushing more pleasurable. Now, here's the challenge. We live in what scientists call a delayed return environment. For most of human history, people lived in an immediate return environment where actions delivered clear and immediate outcomes. If you were hungry, you ate. If you were tired, you slept. If you saw a threat, you ran. But in modern society, many choices we make today won't benefit us immediately. If you exercise today, you might not see results for months. If you save money now, you won't enjoy it until retirement, decades from now. The human brain didn't evolve for this kind of world. We are wired to prefer quick payoffs to long-term ones. This creates a problem. The consequences of bad habits are delayed while the rewards are immediate. Smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress right now. Overeating is harmful in the long run, but feels good in the moment. With good habits, it's the reverse. The immediate outcome is unenjoyable, but the ultimate outcome feels good. Going to the gym is hard today, but it leads to better health tomorrow. So, how do you make good habits satisfying when the ultimate rewards are delayed? You add a little bit of immediate pleasure. One strategy is reinforcement. After you complete a habit, reward yourself with something you enjoy. But be careful, the reward needs to reinforce your identity, not conflict with it. If you're trying to lose weight, rewarding yourself with ice cream doesn't make sense. But maybe a massage does. It's both a luxury and a vote toward taking care of your body. Another strategy works well for habits of avoidance. Let's say you're trying to stop buying unnecessary things. Every time you pass on a purchase, transfer the money you would have spent into a savings account labeled vacation or leather jacket or whatever you're saving for. The immediate reward of seeing your savings grow makes avoiding the purchase satisfying. One of James Clear's readers used this strategy brilliantly. He and his wife wanted to stop eating out and start cooking together more. They labeled a savings account "Trip to Europe." Whenever they skipped going out to eat, they transferred $50 into the account. At the end of the year, they used the money for their vacation. The key is feeling successful, even if it's in a small way. Early on in building a habit, you need a reason to stay on track. Immediate reinforcement helps maintain motivation while you're waiting for long-term rewards to arrive. Now, within this fourth law, there's another powerful strategy: habit tracking. Benjamin Franklin tracked 13 personal virtues in a small booklet he carried everywhere. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld tracks his writing by marking an X on a calendar for every day he writes jokes. He says the goal is to never break the chain. Habit tracking works because it leverages multiple laws of behavior change simultaneously. First, it makes your habit obvious. When you look at a calendar and see your streak, you're reminded to act again. Research shows that people who track their progress on goals like losing weight or quitting smoking are much more likely to improve than those who don't.
Second, it makes your habit attractive. The most effective form of motivation is progress. When we get a signal that we're moving forward, we become more motivated to continue. Each small win feeds your desire. On a bad day, when you feel like quitting, habit tracking provides visual proof of how far you've come. Third, it makes your habit satisfying. It feels good to cross an item off your to-do list or mark an X on your calendar. If it feels good, you're more likely to endure. Let me share a simple example. A guy named Trent Dyersmid was a stockbroker in Canada. Every morning, he'd start with 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paper clips, the other was empty. His goal was simple: make 120 sales calls per day. After each call, he'd move 1 paperclip from the full jar to the empty jar. Within 18 months, he was bringing in $5 million to his firm. By age 24, he was making the equivalent of $125,000 per year in today's money. Making progress was satisfying, and visual measures provided clear evidence of his progress. But here's something important about habit tracking. When the evidence is right in front of you, you're less likely to lie to yourself. Most of us have a distorted view of our own behavior. We think we act better than we do. Tracking offers a way to overcome this blindness and notice what's really going on. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Tracking sounds tedious, and you're right, it can be. That's why James Clear recommends a few strategies to make it easier. First, whenever possible, automate measurement. Your credit card tracks your spending, your Fitbit tracks your steps, your calendar tracks your appointments. Once you know where to get the data, review it weekly or monthly. Second, limit manual tracking to your most important habits. It's better to consistently track one habit than to sporadically track 10. Third, record each measurement immediately after the habit occurs.
After you finish your workout, log it. After you meditate, mark it down. The completion of the behavior is the cue to track it. But here's the most important insight about habit tracking. What happens when you break your streak? Because let me tell you, every habit streak ends at some point. Life will interrupt you. You'll get sick, you'll travel, you'll have a family emergency. Perfection is not possible. This is where James Clear has a simple but powerful rule. Never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. If you miss one day of your workout, get back on track as quickly as possible. If you eat an entire pizza one night, follow it up with a healthy meal the next day. You can't be perfect, but you can avoid a second lapse. The first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. This is what distinguishes winners from losers. Anyone can have a bad performance or a bad day, but successful people, when they fail, they rebound quickly. And here's something else that's crucial. You don't realize how valuable it is to just show up on your bad days. Going to the gym for 5 minutes might not improve your performance much, but it reaffirms your identity. It's about being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts, not about the workout itself.
As investor Charlie Munger says, the first rule of compounding: never interrupt it unnecessarily.
Advanced tactics, genes, and personality. Now, everything we've talked about so far will help you build better habits, but let's talk about taking things to the next level. How do you go from being merely good to being truly great? Let me tell you about two incredible athletes, Michael Phelps and Hisham El Guerrouj. Phelps is 6 feet 4 inches tall and is widely considered the greatest swimmer of all time. El Guerrouj is 5 feet 9 inches tall and is one of the greatest middle distance runners ever. Despite this 7-inch difference in height, these two men wear the same inseam length on their pants. How is that possible? Phelps has relatively short legs and a very long torso, perfect for swimming. El Guerrouj has incredibly long legs and a short upper body, ideal for running. Now imagine if they switched sports. Could Phelps become an Olympic-caliber runner? It's doubtful. At his peak, he weighed 194 pounds. That's 40% heavier than El Guerrouj. Every extra pound is a curse in distance running. Could El Guerrouj become an Olympic swimmer? Also unlikely. Since 1976, the average height of male Olympic swimming champions is 6 feet 4 inches. He'd be at a severe disadvantage. The point is this: the secret to maximizing your odds of success is choosing the right field of competition. Habits are easier to perform and more satisfying to stick with when they align with your natural inclinations and abilities. Now, some people don't like discussing this because it sounds like biological determinism, like some people are destined for success and others are doomed to failure. But that's short-sighted. Genes are both your strength and your weakness. They provide a powerful advantage in favorable circumstances and a serious disadvantage in unfavorable circumstances. Your genes don't determine your destiny. They determine your areas of opportunity. The key is directing your effort toward areas that both excite you and match your natural skills to align your ambition with your ability. So how do you figure out where the odds are in your favor? One way is to look at your personality. Scientists have identified 5 major personality traits, what they call the Big Five: openness to experience, curious versus cautious; conscientiousness, organized versus easygoing; extroversion, outgoing versus reserved; agreeableness, friendly versus challenging; and neuroticism, anxious versus calm. All 5 characteristics have biological underpinnings. For example, babies who are born turning toward loud noises are more likely to grow up extroverted. People high in agreeableness tend to have higher natural oxytocin levels, which makes them more inclined towards social bonding. The point isn't that your personality determines everything. It's that you should build habits that work for your personality. If you prefer rock climbing over bodybuilding, structure your exercise around that. If you love steamy romance novels more than nonfiction, read those. Choose habits that suit you, not the ones that are most popular. Beyond personality, ask yourself these questions. What feels like fun to me but work to others?
The work that hurts you less than it hurts others is the work you were made to do. What makes me lose track of time? When you enter a flow state, that mental zone where you're so focused the world fades away, you've found something that resonates with you. Where do I get greater returns than the average person? When James Clear started writing online, his email list grew much faster than his peers. He wasn't sure what he was doing right, but the results motivated him to keep going. What comes naturally to me? Ignore what you've been taught or what others expect. Look inside and ask, when have I felt alive? When have I felt like the real me? And here's the thing, if you can't find a game where the odds are in your favor, create one. Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind Dilbert, puts it perfectly. I can draw better than most people, but I'm hardly an artist, and I'm not funnier than the average stand-up comedian. But few people can draw well and write jokes. The combination makes what I do rare. When you can't win by being better, win by being different. By combining your skills, you reduce the level of competition. You create your own game that favors your strengths and avoids your weaknesses. James Clear did this too. In college, he designed his own major, biomechanics, combining physics, chemistry, biology, and anatomy. He wasn't smart enough to stand out among top physics students or biology students, so he created his own category. This is the power of specialization. The more you master a specific skill, the harder it becomes for others to compete with you. Even if you're not the most naturally gifted, you can often win by being the best in a very narrow category. One of the best ways to ensure your habits remain satisfying over the long run is to pick behaviors that align with your personality and skills. Work hard on the things that come easy.
The Goldilocks rule: staying motivated. Now let's talk about staying motivated for the long haul. In 1955, a 10-year-old boy walked into the brand new Disneyland in California and asked for a job. Labor laws were loose back then, so he got a position selling guidebooks for 50 cents a piece. By the next year, he'd moved to the magic shop, learning tricks from older employees. He discovered he loved performing. In his teenage years, he started performing at little clubs around Los Angeles. The crowds were small, his act was short, rarely more than 5 minutes. One night, he literally performed to an empty club. It wasn't glamorous, but there was no doubt he was getting better. His first routines lasted only a minute or two. By high school, he had a 5-minute act. A few years later, a 10-minute show. At 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes. He had to read poems just to fill the time, but his skills continued progressing. He spent another decade practicing and adjusting. He took jobs as a TV writer, gradually landing appearances on talk shows. By the mid-1970s, he was a regular on The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live. Finally, after nearly 15 years of work, he rose to fame. In his own words, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. His name is Steve Martin, and his story reveals something crucial about staying motivated. The way to maintain peak motivation is to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. This is what James Clear calls the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Think about playing tennis. If you play against a 4-year-old, you'll get bored quickly. If you play against Serena Williams, you'll lose motivation fast. But if you play against someone equal to you, your focus narrows, distractions fade, and you're fully invested. This is a challenge of just manageable difficulty. Steve Martin's comedy career perfectly demonstrates this. Each year, he expanded his routine, but only by a minute or two. He was always adding new material while keeping some jokes that were guaranteed to get laughs. Just enough victories to stay motivated, just enough mistakes to keep working hard. Research shows that to achieve a state of flow, that feeling of being in the zone, a task must be roughly 4% beyond your current ability. In real life, you can't quantify it that precisely, but the core idea holds. Working on challenges at the edge of your ability is crucial for maintaining motivation. But here's the challenge.
Once you've built a habit and the beginner gains are made, things get boring. The outcome becomes expected, and as habits become ordinary, we start seeking novelty. Perhaps this is why we jump from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we seek a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. James Clear once talked to a weightlifting coach who'd worked with thousands of athletes, including Olympians. He asked, "What's the difference between the best athletes and everyone else?" The coach mentioned genetics and luck, but then he said something unexpected. At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over. This is a different way of thinking about work ethic. We hear people say, "You have to really want it," or "it all comes down to passion." But really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is they still show up despite the boredom. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what's important and work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off course by the urgencies of life. There have been lots of workouts James Clear didn't feel like finishing, but he's never regretted doing them. Lots of articles he didn't feel like writing, but never regretted publishing. Lots of days he felt like relaxing, but never regretted showing up and working. The ability to keep going when work isn't exciting, that's what makes the difference.
The downside of habits and reflection. Now, we've spent all this time talking about the power of habits, but there's something important we need to address. Habits have a downside. Here's what happens. Once a habit becomes automatic, you stop paying attention to little errors. You assume you're getting better because you're gaining experience, but actually, you're just reinforcing your current habits, not improving them. Research shows that once a skill has been mastered, there's usually a slight decline in performance over time. This is fine for habits like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes, but when you want to maximize your potential and achieve elite levels of performance, you need something more. You need a combination of automatic habits and deliberate practice. Think of it this way. Mastery equals habits plus deliberate practice. Basketball players need to dribble without thinking before they can work on advanced moves. Surgeons need to make basic incisions automatically so they can focus on the complex variables during surgery. But after one habit is mastered, you have to return to the effortful part of work and begin building the next habit. This is why reflection and review are so crucial. They allow you to remain conscious of your performance over time so you can continue to refine and improve. Let me share a powerful example. In 1986, the Los Angeles Lakers had one of the most talented basketball teams ever assembled. They started the season with an incredible 29-5 record, but they stumbled in the playoffs and didn't even make it to the finals. Their coach, Pat Riley, was tired of hearing about potential. He wanted consistent excellence, so he created something called the Career Best Effort Program, CBE for short. Here's how it worked. Riley tracked every player's statistics going all the way back to high school. He determined each player's baseline performance. Then he asked each player to improve their output by at least 1% over the course of the season. But it wasn't just about points scored. Players got credit for diving for loose balls, helping teammates, and other unsung hero deeds. Riley calculated a CBE number for each player for each game and compared it not only to their past performances but also to other players in the league. The LA Lakers implemented CBE in October 1986. 8 months later, they were NBA champions. The following year, they won again, becoming the first team in 20 years to win back-to-back championships. Riley said afterward, "Sustaining an effort is the most important thing for any enterprise. The way to be successful is to learn how to do things right, then do them the same way every time." The CBE program is a perfect example of reflection and review.
The LA Lakers were already talented. CBE helped them get the most out of what they had and ensured their habits improved rather than declined.
Top performers in all fields engage in reflection and review. Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge takes notes after every practice, reviewing his training and searching for areas to improve. Swimmer Katie Ledecky records her wellness daily and notes on nutrition and sleep. Her coach reviews these notes each week and adds his thoughts. Comedian Chris Rock tests new material at small clubs dozens of times, recording which jokes work and which need adjustment. The few killer lines that survive form the backbone of his shows. James Clear himself does 2 types of reflection. Each December, he performs an annual review where he reflects on the previous year, tallying his habits, counting articles published, workouts completed, places visited. Then he answers 3 questions. What went well this year? What didn't go so well this year? What did I learn? 6 months later, he conducts an integrity report, answering, what are the core values that drive my life and work? How am I living with integrity right now? How can I set a higher standard in the future? These reports don't take long, just a few hours per year, but they're crucial periods of refinement. They prevent the gradual slide that happens when you don't pay attention. But here's something else important about reflection. It helps you avoid getting too attached to a single identity. The tighter you cling to an identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. You see this everywhere. The teacher who ignores innovative methods, the manager committed to doing things his way, the surgeon who dismisses younger colleagues' ideas. As investor Paul Graham says, keep your identity small. The more you let a single belief define you, the less capable you are of adapting when life challenges you. If you tie everything up in being the point guard or the partner at the firm, losing that becomes devastating. The key is redefining yourself so you keep important aspects of your identity even if your role changes. I'm an athlete becomes I'm the type of person who is mentally tough and loves physical challenges. I'm a great soldier becomes I'm the type of person who is disciplined and reliable. I'm the CEO becomes I'm the type of person who builds and creates things. There's a beautiful quote from the Tao Te Ching that captures this perfectly. Men are born soft and supple, dead they are stiff and hard. Thus whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken, the soft and supple will prevail. Everything is impermanent. Life is constantly changing. You need to periodically check in to see if your old habits and beliefs are still serving you. A lack of self-awareness is poison. Reflection and review is the antidote. So here we are, friend. We've covered a lot of ground together. Let me leave you with one final story, an ancient Greek parable called the Sorites paradox. It asks, can one coin make a person rich? If you give someone 10 coins, they're not rich. But what if you add another, and another, and another? At some point, you have to admit that no one can be rich unless one coin can make them so. The same is true with atomic habits. Can one tiny change transform your life? Probably not. But what if you made another, and another, and another? At some point, you have to admit that your life was transformed by one small change. The holy grail of habit change isn't a single 1% improvement, it's 1,000 of them. It's a bunch of atomic habits stacking up, each one a fundamental unit of the overall system. In the beginning, small improvements seem meaningless because they get washed away by the weight of the system. One positive change, like medicating for 1 minute or reading 1 page, is unlikely to deliver a noticeable difference. But gradually, as you layer small changes on top of one another, the scales of life start to move. Each improvement is like adding a grain of sand to the positive side of the scale. Eventually, if you stick with it, you hit a tipping point. Suddenly, it feels easier to stick with good habits. The weight of the system is working for you rather than against you. Success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It's a system to improve, an endless process to refine. Remember the 4 laws. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. To break a bad habit, invert these laws. Make it invisible,
make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. This is a continuous process. There's no finish line, no permanent solution. You're always looking for the next way to get 1% better. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying, and round and round. The secret to getting results that last is to never stop making improvements. It's remarkable what you can build if you just don't stop. It's remarkable the business you can build if you don't stop working. It's remarkable the body you can build if you don't stop training. It's remarkable the knowledge you can build if you don't stop learning. It's remarkable the relationships you can build if you don't stop caring. Small habits don't add up, they compound. That's the power of atomic habits. Tiny changes, remarkable results. So start small, start today. Pick one tiny habit. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. And then do it again tomorrow, and the day after that. Before you know it, you won't just have better habits, you'll have a better life. You'll have become a better version of yourself. And that, my friend, is the true power of atomic habits. Before you go, I strongly encourage you to buy your own copy of Atomic Habits. What we've covered today is just the beginning. The complete book goes much deeper and will give you a profound understanding of how to truly transform your life through small changes. When you own the book, you can revisit these powerful concepts whenever you need them and discover countless insights we didn't have time to explore today. The purchase link is right there in the description below. If this summary helped you, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel for more transformative content like this. Now go grab that book and start building your atomic habits.